Okay, Shïan's History of Rock Part 9, Metal, really difficult one, a lot of fine lines, where does hard rock become metal? Kiss, for example, Kiss, AC/DC, bands like that are often called heavy metal. For me, that's not really metal, you know, I mean, Kiss started very early, about 74, but it wasn't a very innovative sound, really. It was just like really heavy glam rock, and AC/DC always had like a rock and roll swagger that they just don't have enough of the metal necessities to be like correctly termed as that. So what are these sounds? What are these metal sounds? Okay, well, firstly, the distorted guitar. It's kind of almost like a gated, kind of contained sound. You know, not like kind of Hendrix, Nirvana, wild, feedbacky, distorted guitars. This is a controlled, really, controlled distortion sound, and then it's just expanded. And then other metal sounds are like the big fat drums, you know, the bass drum right here in your face. You got your screaming, you got your high screaming in the early metal bands, then you got your low screaming, oh, and the late metal bands, and you got your twiddles that came out of the guitar twiddles that came out of the prog rock scene, and then and like the layering guitar sounds, classic metal. You got your ding, you know, that kind of rolling came from Deep Purple, and then Sabbath, and then Judas Priest, and then Iron Maiden. You know, that's a classic metal sound. Then you got your dark, really harsh chord changes that came out of metal. First time you really hear it in the rock record is in Alice Cooper, about 69, around there. And you know, just moments where it's just like, wow, you know, that was not nice, you know, almost like evil chord changes. And then Black Sabbath, like, you know, around then, or like very soon afterwards, kind of developed their own ideas of new sounds, and they were very innovative in the first few years, as were Alice Cooper. And both those bands, I think, stopped being innovative in the first few years, and then just kind of, for me, not true metal paths. Like, they didn't really take the metal very far. They kind of threw out ideas, and then kind of by the 80s, they were both sounding kind of like glam metal, or like stadium rock or classic rock. But very important, King Crimson also, you know, early 70s, kind of throwing some really strange chord sequences, jagged, metal-y chord sequences out of there in between other sounds, you know, because they're a, you know, prog rock band first and foremost. And then in the 80s, they didn't go the glam metal way. They went almost like prog metal way, like the Dream Theater path. And, you know, some of the sounds King Crimson produced in the 80s were like lifted by Faith No More and Linkin Park, and, you know, some so really important non-metal band, King Crimson, but really important in metal development. So going back to Black Sabbath, because this is where we see the first metal songs, like the whole metal songs, not moments like you get in Alice Cooper or King Crimson, but whole songs, like, oh, okay, right, now you've actually got a sound that you're going with. I still wouldn't say any early Black Sabbath albums were fully metal albums, but there were definitely some songs. But, you know, if you want to see exactly where hard rock became metal, then you go to early Black Sabbath. War Pigs, the first song I think on the second album, Paranoid, like, you know, those kind of kind of harsh, evil chord sequences, chord changes, very typically metal sound. And then they they produced a few other kind of metal sounds, like the, kind of really riffy, like chuggy, kind of half-time, almost like a 90s rap metal sound, and other, that were really, throwing out some great sounds, and but then kind of directed themselves, kind of focused more on like just great hard rock, and then some prog rock, and even moments of sounding like Elton John, pop rock and stuff. So, Black Sabbath, great band. And then, like I say, by the 80s, they were sounding kind of like they went to like a classic rock, glam rock, which was already established by Kiss. Also very important in image, Kiss, lots of big hair and makeup, and they're almost legends in the metal image, and lots of black, and lots of glamour. So where did the story continue from Black Sabbath? Because they didn't take they kind of invented metal in a way, but then just didn't take it very far. They kind of gave the baton, as it were, to another band, which was Judas Priest. Judas Priest, for me, are the first true metal band. It's the first band where you can say, okay, pretty much everything they did you could categorize as metal. I mean, there were some moments of prog and hard rock and soft rock and stuff, but just like 90% definitely metal, and even the first step from the get-go, first album, 74, really early, was not pure metal, but mostly metal. Like, the hard rock was really heavy, and there was some dark changes, some chugs. Another really important metal sound, when you dampen a distorted guitar, the strings on a distorted guitar, you get like a jung, 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 jugga, 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 and you can incorporate that in the riffs, and that's what Judas Priest took on, and then continued through the 70s, and they just got more and more metal, and then you start to get. Now it's a scene, right? From Judas Priest. Now, it's a thing, and you get Saxon and Iron Maiden were the first metal band that I was aware of, seeing, Eddie the Zombie posters all over my older brother's bedroom. Another British band. So far, most of these bands have been British, and that's classic ding, but still pretty positive, higher, like a high kind of light, melodically light, like the darker sides of metal, at least on the commercial record, were not exploited. They were suggested, as I say, at moments of Judas Priest and Black Sabbath and Alice Cooper and King Crimson, but it wasn't really exploited. So that's what happened in the 80s. You get bands like Slayer. I mean, you hear the first Slayer album, I think it's from 83, and it's just like already like, like, wow, this is like really intense, it's really fast and really dark and heavy, and the chord changes are unforgiving. So finally, like the kind of what I really identify with as metal, like the dark side of metal, because I came of age in the 90s, and there were already so many dark metal bands. It took me years to kind of get back to the roots and learn about where metal began, which was apart from a few moments, as I say, metal was in the 70s. It was like a happy, it was a light. Probably sounded pretty horrible to older generations or people that hadn't heard much music, but it was melodically quite light. And so in the 80s, Slayer, and then Pantera, and then Metallica, really getting these speeds up, like, and the production getting really big, like good, how close to the face can we get this bass drum, and like, you know, and then speed metal was born, and then death metal and black metal, and you know, and then from then on, it's like, and then you get really, I think it was 1990 was Metallica the Black Album, and then like that just brought it all down. Like really, pop metal can now be pop. Like it can now be. I mean, the Black Album isn't all metal pop, but it's like half. It's like a hybrid. Like half of it is good old fashioned like heavy kind of dark metal, or you know, not very dark, not very heavy, not very horrible, but you know, but some songs were like just great pop songs, but also great metal songs. You know, wow! So this is a kind of like a new thing commercially, and obviously new audiences. And then yeah, I mean, for me, Sepultura and Megadeth, that was kind of what I was listening to, in and also industrial metal and stuff, Ministry and in the 90s, and then rap metal, Rage, and then really, you know, then the late 90s, Deftones and Incubus kind of jump started like the new metal scene. And so what was that? Well, there was nothing left to do. There was, so the only thing they could do was just package and recycle everything for a new younger audience that think that this is new. This is something that has not existed previously, and then it just became a pure pop scene, pure pop wave. I think that's about it.